Hello and welcome. I'm Bill Wake. Here today we're going to look at a refactoring called Replace Method with Method Object. This came out in a program I'm developing. It's designed to read musical tunes and do some analysis on them. We're using an ABC parser. That's the notation we're using for input, and the parser understands the input and sends its information to a tune builder. The tune builder has three real roles. It accumulates metadata, such as the title of the tune. It accumulates starting state, such as the key signature or time signature, and it accumulates events like notes and rests and bar lines. When it finishes, it builds a tune. The tune knows the metadata, but it's organized things into parts, measures, and notes. The problem came in the tune builder. Originally, it wasn't much of a job to create the tune from the events, but that grew over time. When I tried to simplify it, I ran across this code. Symbols and measure count greater than 0. So it's in there about 3 times, trying to keep track of the measure as it's built. And I wanted to extract it because it's duplicated. When I extracted it, the tool figured out which things needed to be inputs and outputs and which ones were just pure inputs. It's too much. There's 4 variables for 4 lines of code. So I didn't want to go through and repeat this with multiple places all taking these in-out things. But I'm kind of stuck. If I made them fields, they don't really fit with the other fields. The other fields are gathering data, and their lifetime doesn't match the class. I care about these values only when I'm doing the tune building part that makes the measures. And I don't care about them when I'm gathering data early. So it's got a bit of a clash. So what will we do? There's a refactoring that can help address this. Replace method with method object. The idea is when we find it hard to work with this method locally, we pull it into its own object and then it can do things more easily. So here are the steps that'll get us there. We start with the old class. It's got its fields, methods, and this function we care about. The method's a long method. It's got fields and local variables. First step is we'll create a new class. This is the method object. Then we'll give it a constructor. We'll pass in fields that do it used in the old class, and we'll pass in the parameters that came in to do it. Then we'll create the new method, do it, over on this side, empty, and copy its body from the old class. Then we'll compile. This is implicit in a lot of IDEs, but if you miss a field reference, you might get an error then. Next, we'll take the method and change the old class to call the new one. So it creates a new instance and then calls the method right away. And we can compile and test, and everything should work. We're delegating off to this new class. That's when things are fun. You can go refactor do it. And as you find problems like I did, where you extract variables and it wants them in and out, you can promote those local variables up to fields, and then the extracts become much easier. Here we have the same steps written on one page. All right, let's go do it. Here we see Tune Builder's make method, and that's the one we're going to work on. It's got this complete tune that takes the events and it builds up the parts which contain the measures and notes. Here's an example of that code we want to be able to extract. The first step is to create a new class. And we'll call it events to parts. The next step is to capture the fields and parameters we need. We'll store them in fields on this object and initialize them with a constructor. So I think it's really these 3. We don't really need reference number, titles, or part spec, I don't think. Let's take this. We'll make them all variables. And I'll make them all private. And init, it should offer to create them. Time signature, initial state, and events. Okay. I don't think we care to initialize it. I don't know why it did. Okay, but that sets us up there. The next step is to make an empty method for the function we're going to move over. And that was complete tune. And it returns parts. We don't need any parameters because we've got them already captured. And I'm just going to call this make. I think that's a better name for what we're doing. Next, we copy the original method's body over here. So we'll just take all of this. And we compile. I think the IDE keeps up with it. There's no red marks, so we're probably okay. And since we're not using this new thing, it's just there. We can run tests if we want to. It's totally optional. The next step is to replace this call. We're going to create our new object. We'll pass in all those pieces. And we'll call our make method. In Swift, if it's a one-liner, it returns the value computed, so we don't need a return statement per se. We can see it compiles. We'll go ahead and build it and run it. Make sure those tests still pass. Okay, the refactoring is done. We can go ahead and work with this class now. So here's that one of those blocks of code like that. Let's go ahead and extract a method. All right, when we extract, we see it needs two in-out parameters for symbols and measure and parts, and it also needs access to the current part. So let's undo the extract and then move those pieces up. So it was part, symbols, and current part. We'll promote those up here to be field level. And we'll try again on our extract. I think I'll call this move to next measure. I don't really have quite the name. Usually I figure it out once I get there. All right, you can see we don't need any arguments now. It just uses local fields. Those are the fields we didn't want to extract out in the previous class because they'd be kind of in the way. Here, it's much more focused on that, and it's a better fit. All right, and we can go on from there. There's duplicates of that we can reference, and there's probably some other things we can do. So we've got our method object class, events to parts, and we can work with it without having to worry about Tune Builder. And Tune Builder is a better class too. All that stuff that it was keeping track of, now it's the job of events to parts, and this class becomes simpler. If you'd like to learn more, please subscribe at xp123.com/update.